The decades-long controversy over oil and gas drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR, in Alaska, represents a profound national conflict at the intersection of energy policy, environmental conservation, and indigenous rights. At the heart of the debate is the coastal plain, also known as the 1002 area, a 1.5 million acre stretch of pristine tundra with potentially vast energy resources. This area is legally recognized as a wilderness study area, but was open to leasing by Congress in 2017 as part of federal tax legislation, fundamentally changing its protected status and renewing a highly polarized battle. Summary and analysis. The core issue in ANWR is the trade-off between guaranteed, short-term economic and energy benefits versus irreversible, long-term environmental and cultural costs. Proponents view the coastal plain as a strategic asset, crucial for U.S. energy security, a source of billions in state and federal revenue, and a lifeline for Alaska's declining petroleum economy. Opponents, however, emphasize the irreplaceable ecological value of the refuge and the moral imperative of respecting the sacred lands of the indigenous Gwich'in people. The debate is less about the presence of oil and more about the compatibility of industrial development with the refuge's primary conservation mandate. Reasons and consequences. The arguments for drilling are primarily economic and geopolitical. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, estimates that the 1002 area contains between 4.3 and 11.8 billion barrels of technically recoverable oil. Proponents, including the state of Alaska and some local Inupiaq communities, who favor the potential for jobs and economic development, argue that utilizing this domestic resource would reduce reliance on volatile foreign oil imports, create thousands of jobs, and inject billions into state and federal treasuries through taxes and royalties. Furthermore, they cite modern directional drilling technologies that limit the surface footprint of development to a mandated 2,000 acres, suggesting environmental impacts can be minimized. The consequences of pursuing development are severe and long-lasting, according to conservation groups and the Gwich'in Nation. The coastal plain is the primary calving ground for the porcupine caribou herd, a critical subsistence resource for the Gwich'in people who consider the area sacred. Industrial activity, including construction of roads, pipelines, gravel pits, and drilling pads, would disrupt the caribou migration patterns and vital denning habitats for vulnerable species like the polar bear. The Arctic ecosystem is fragile, with slow recovery rates, meaning pollution or degradation can persist for decades or centuries. Beyond the local effects, drilling exacerbates climate change, as the extraction of billions of barrels of oil contributes significantly to global greenhouse gas emissions. Prediction and solutions. Prediction. The future of ANWR drilling will likely be characterized by continued political volatility and prolonged legal challenges. Given the deeply divided nature of the issue, development plans often hinge on the party in power, leading to a cycle of lease sales followed by suspensions and cancellations. This regulatory uncertainty, coupled with the high cost of operating in the remote, harsh Arctic environment, with break-even oil prices estimated near $80 per barrel, deters major risk-averse oil corporations from making the necessary $15 to $20 billion investment. As the global energy transition accelerates and alternative sources become cheaper, the economic case for ANWR will diminish, potentially leaving current leases undeveloped and tied up in litigation. The primary barrier to development will remain in the federal court system, with lawsuits citing violations of the National Environmental Policy Act and the Endangered Species Act, ESA. Solutions. Resolving the ANWR conflict requires moving beyond the binary drill or don't drill dilemma toward consensus-driven and diversified strategies. 1. Permanent wilderness designation. The most definitive solution favored by environmental groups is for Congress to repeal the 2017 drilling mandate and designate the 1002 area as a permanent wilderness. This would legally prohibit development, offering stability and fulfilling the refuge's conservation purpose. 2. Economic diversification for Alaska. The state of Alaska must proactively reduce its near-total dependence on oil revenue by investing in sustainable industries such as tourism, mariculture, and renewable energy, geothermal, wind. This long-term strategy would remove the existential economic pressure that currently drives the push for ANWR development. 3. Indigenous-led conservation. Any path forward must fully integrate and respect the sovereignty and traditional ecological knowledge of the Gwich'in Nation and other indigenous groups. This involves moving beyond mere consultation to ensure that conservation or development decisions are guided by those who rely on the land for subsistence and cultural survival. 4. Rigorous compatibility determinations. A less binary approach involves ensuring that the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, applies the strictest interpretation of the 2,000-acre surface footprint limitation, while also requiring supplemental environmental impact statements that fully account for the cumulative effects of infrastructure, habitat fragmentation, and climate change risks, thus making the permitting process prohibitively difficult for incompatible projects. Ultimately, the ANWR debate serves as a national litmus test for valuing wilderness, ecological stability, and cultural heritage over short-term fossil fuel extraction. Given global climate commitments and shifting energy markets, a consensus solution increasingly points toward permanent protection.